Welcome back to the Unstuck movement. I'm your host, Rob Z. Today we have the incredible and powerful Lenora Edwards with us. And Lenora, I love to start these episodes straight off with a question to dive in. Great questions create great breakthroughs in our lives. So the question for you, you're sitting in a dentist chair and something spectacular, marvelous, incredible happens to you that creates a breakthrough in your life from the eating disorder that you were experiencing, the negative self-talk that you were experiencing. What happened to you sitting in the dentist chair that day?
Thankfully, the voices in my head were so loud that day, and there was an amazing drill going into my skull, which was even more fun and enjoyable, that it drowned out the negative voices that I was hearing. And I finally heard, maybe there's something you just don't know yet. And it completely changed my life.
Maybe there is something you just don't know yet. Boy, is that the truth for most of us, actually for all of us in our life, right? So, okay, I want to know what this thing was that you didn't know, but I want to welcome everybody here to the show. This show, the Unstuck Movement, is to help you break the chains that are holding you back in your life. These are true testimonies of breakthrough, sponsored by the Connected Leaders Academy. Check out connectedleadersacademy.com. Lenora Edwards, second time on the show, is a TEDx speaker and author, blends hypnosis, NLP, and holographic memory resolution to empower individuals in overcoming eating challenges and fostering self-compassion. Thank you, Lenora, for being here, for doing the work that you do, for being a great friend. Tell me, what was that? What was the thing that you just didn't know yet as you were sitting there in that dentist chair?
I just want to pause and say thank you so much for having me. It's always amazing to work with you. So thank you for doing all the incredible work that you do, Rob.
Thank you. Same to you. Last time you were on, you weren't a TEDx speaker yet. So now I can say officially I've had a TEDx speaker on my podcast.
That was super exciting. And I momentarily forgot the question that you had asked me. I apologize.
It was just going back to, what was it? What was the thing that you just didn't know yet that spark happened in the dentist chair that day?
I had spent a number of years learning a variety of techniques, learning ways to really, what most people would consider, have positive self-talk or be a positive thinker, and really spent a number of years in the world of personal growth. And I had spent so many hours between YouTube, what I love to call YouTube University, and self-help books and self-paced courses. And I was working so hard to really help myself out of the eating disorder that I was experiencing, help myself out of emotional eating, help myself have a positive mindset, a supportive mindset. And I would take 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. I would make some gains and then fall backwards. And I could not figure out why I was still stuck. What was I doing wrong? And I was trying so hard. I had spent thousands of dollars and thousands of hours investing in books, in videos, in audios, and I was still stuck. And now I was losing my teeth, which is a side effect that some people may or may not know as a result of an eating disorder. So when I was sitting in the dentist chair getting my second false tooth, I was so grateful for that momentary pause of the critical voices that I had in my head, to that one voice that said, maybe there's something you just don't know yet. And there was such kindness in this voice that I had heard, and it truly came to that moment that said, okay, maybe I just don't know something yet. Perhaps I can reach out to professionals. Perhaps I can find the courage to have a conversation with somebody about this very personal, very secret part of my life that I had hidden from everybody for years. And when I finally came to that moment of, maybe I need to reach out to a professional, it really opened that door for more learning, but really much more personal care. And that made all the difference.
What do people get wrong about eating disorders, or the most common thing, right? What is something that the person who does not have an eating disorder or does not do emotional eating on a regular basis, like what do they misunderstand about it?
The biggest thing that most people misunderstand is they'll say something, especially to if you know somebody that's experiencing this, they'll often say, "We'll just don't have it. We'll just stop. We'll just don't do it." And when we're having that emotional response to calm ourselves, whether we're reaching for food or alcohol or drugs or something, what's really happening is our nervous system is being overwhelmed with emotion and we don't know how to cope any other way. So we reach for food or we reach for alcohol or we reach for these other things as a way to quite literally calm ourselves down and restore that homeostasis, restore that balance to our nervous system. And especially when somebody's, whether it's cutting or eating, whatever it is, we're seeking a way to calm ourselves. This is a behavior we're designed this way, which is an amazing feature of being human. We're designed to find ways to calm ourselves. Happens to be that this isn't the most helpful way to calm ourselves and to restore balance and how to really process our emotion. And that's the biggest misunderstanding is that you can just stop. You just don't need it.
Yeah, it's like I don't feel okay how I am, and I need an external thing to come in that's going to make me feel okay, right? Whether that's food, well, I'm speaking from personal experience. Whether
Mhm.
that's food or if it's yeah, drugs or alcohol or um, there's the plethora of things you can fill that gap with, right? But I don't feel okay the way I am right now, and
Mhm.
I need to do something about it. And the only thing I can think of right now is to eat all of these Twix bars
Mhm.
or whatever, because for me, it's like chocolate, right? And then
Yeah.
I feel like crap afterwards. But in the moment, I'm like, oh, this is gonna help. And then,
Yeah.
you maybe have, like you said, you might have to learn the lesson 10,000 times.
Mhm.
And then the pain, right? The pain of like, oh, this doesn't work. That's right. Taking drugs doesn't work. I remember now.
Yeah.
Right? Because it can just be it's like never ending. And I have a bunch of different questions I want to ask you on this, but I'm very interested about this area just because I feel like so many people deal with this. Why didn't you tell anybody? Was it the shame
Oh, yeah.
of what you were doing, and what was that shame?
Oh, absolutely. Especially when there are things that we don't want people to know. And at one point, I know you and I spoke a couple of years ago at one point, and I had even and I have said this, the result of the fact that I have now healed, I can talk about this.
Mm,
I would have sooner taken it to the grave than
mhm,
have told a single soul about it because I was horrified and mortified of what I was doing. And for me specifically, I would chew food and I would spit, get it out of my mouth. And I would do it so frequently that was just literally a way to cope. And when I started, even when I had started to work with professionals, it was still 20 hours of work that this person and I did together before I even remotely trusted this person enough to say what was going on. And even to actually get the words out of my mouth. I remember vividly, I was hysterical because I had so much pain and so much shame wrapped around it. And especially when we don't, these aren't things that people necessarily talk with confidence and feel comfortable talking about because there is so much hurt there. And to tell somebody that even if it's your friend, even if it's your dear family member, to tell this person and to have them be able to truly understand the pain that you're in and ask them to not judge you, to ask them to be that safe person for you that you're asking for help. A lot of people don't necessarily know how to do that. Will often say like, "Oh, well, yeah, I don't judge you." And then somebody's swooping in saying, "You shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't da 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 da." And they're shooting all over you. And they're no longer that safe person because now not only are you ashamed of something, now somebody's telling you you should be ashamed of that. And how could you? When we work with professionals, and this is something I know you and I hold very dear to our heart, we're working with people and our clients and the clients that we work with in group coaching and one-on-one, we understand they're coming to us with a problem. Sometimes when we share, people look at us as the problem. And there's a very distinct difference. When we share with somebody, especially when we're coaches and we're therapists of all sorts and professionals, we have the ability to help that person put this problem out on the table and say, "It's okay. Let's look at this together. I see you. It's okay. You're not alone. Let's work on this." And to be able to really feel that from somebody, that safety, that space, that understanding of, "This is a horrible thing for me. Somebody please help me." And you get that when you have that connection with somebody that you're working with, is completely life altering.
Mhm. Yeah, when you have the safe space that you're finally ready to talk about it, and you also
Mhm.
meet somebody who, you feel safe enough to, like, have received that.
Yeah.
And this is really interesting, so I'm gonna I'm gonna admit something to you that I did the other day that, I'm not I don't have any so shame is interesting because you could do something the same thing as somebody else, and you have shame around it, and they don't.
Mhm.
The other day, for Lent, I gave up sweets. I didn't eat sweets, and I was like, "Wow, this is really I feel really good. I'm gonna stop eating, like, chocolate and stuff because I know it makes me bloated and makes me kinda feel like crap, and I
Mhm.
emotionally eat chocolate."
Mhm.
So, the other day, I was having a moment, and I was not feeling like I was okay, and I needed to, like,
Mhm.
consume some chocolate, so I go into our cupboard, and I found, like, a bunch of little, just, like, chocolate pieces, and I
Yeah.
did what you just said. I chewed a bunch of them and then spit them out.
Yeah.
I threw one in my mouth, and I started chewing it, and I was like, "Ugh, I don't want this, spit it out." I
Yeah.
was like, "What's this one taste like?" Chewed it, spit it out. The other
Mhm.
one, but I didn't feel I even told my wife right afterwards. I was
Mhm.
like, "You know what I just did?" And
Yeah.
I found it, like, comical that I did this, but it helped
Mhm.
because it relieved, like, whatever was happening to me right then, but also
Mhm.
I didn't, like, swallow it and feel crappy afterwards.
Mhm.
And I'm not gonna, like it's not like I'm gonna make this a habit, but
Mhm.
I didn't have any shame around that, and I think this is really interesting because there's things in my life that I definitely do have shame around that other people don't, right?
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
So, that's first of all, I just wanna honor you in admitting that and that you went through this process. You know, the theme in this podcast that comes up over and over again is making your mess your message, and once you get through the
Mhm.
mess, it becomes the message you help people with. So I think, Lenora, it's amazing that you've made it through the mess. It's now a message you're helping people with, which is eatlovehealjourney.com,
Mhm.
right? And you're taking people through this process on how to
Mhm.
break the chains,
Yeah.
and these things that are holding them back. But I find shame to be interesting because it is unique to you.
Oh,
And it's
yeah.
not like everybody doesn't have shame about the same things.
Mhm.
It's something connected with you about that thing that
Yeah.
causes that shame. So I just wanted to go through all that and tell you that. But
Thank you
then,
for sharing that.
yeah, you're welcome. And on the other side, so going back to your original question in the dentist's office that day, something you don't know yet.
Mhm.
When you figured out what the thing was that you didn't know, that you met the right person that you could tell this story to and find that breakthrough, what started to happen that never happened before in this,
Oh,
like, negative self-talk and
yeah.
eating disorder journey?
Yeah. One technique that this person had shared with me and had taught me is a technique that I'm now certified in. And this technique is called Holographic Memory Resolution. And that book. This technique is such an incredible technique because it allows us to reframe things and it allows us to bring up certain emotions without reliving the pain and without altering the events. So sometimes, especially in certain therapies, especially if we're talking about the event over and over again, there's a lot of what can happen is re-traumatization. You can keep activating this emotional response, causing more stress to the system. And with this technique, and this technique has been around for a number of decades, and it was developed by a man named Brent Baum. And this technique has been used with people in facilities across throughout the entire world, specifically also with people who were in plane accidents, who experienced PTSD, who've had anxiety, so many different things. And what happens is when we're having an emotional response, we're having a very physical activated response. We know we're stressed, we know we're anxious, we know that we're in fear. We can feel it. When working with these emotions and when we're experiencing these emotions, especially let's use for example anxiety. You go, I'm not anxious. I'm not anxious. I'm not anxious. We're actually acknowledging the emotion, but we're talking to it in a different language than it understands. It doesn't understand our words. It understands the language that it's wired in. And our nervous system is wired in the languages of colors, shapes, sizes, and textures. And this is the language of our nervous system because this is what we were born with. When we were babies, we didn't understand the difference between a spoon or a fork. We did understand colors. We did understand tones. We did understand textures. And understanding that is what truly helps bridge this gap between the conscious mind and the subconscious, between our mind and our body. When we can bridge this gap and say, oh, Lenora, how do you know it's time to spit out food? Well, I feel it. Okay, where do you feel it? It's right here. Okay, tell me more about it. And as I work with my clients, especially during one-on-one, they'll tell me, I feel it in my stomach or something. Okay, is it inside or outside? Is there a weight connected to this energy? Is there a color? Is there a shape connected to this energy? And what we're actually doing is we are localizing on the icon of how our nervous system stored that. And this technique lets us communicate to that icon in a very safe way without reactivating it. And it lets it release the energy from our body and keep the lessons, which is entirely important. It's not that the event didn't happen. And it's not that, especially past painful events like being in a war or sexual abuse or getting yelled at. It's not that the event didn't happen. The event happened and it was very real to us. Our nervous system held on to the information in a very specific way. Now, with this technique, it can let go of the pain and keep the lessons so that it really truly understands the event isn't going on anymore. We don't need that emotional response of having this behavior of whatever I was doing or having this rage or having this meltdown. We don't need to carry that pain. And that's the difference that makes all the difference. That's truly being able to understand our emotions and control them in such a way like it's having the remote control to our own inner world. Like you said, we all experience shame differently. This technique allows us to manage our emotions in a way that's effective and safe and restores balance to the nervous system.
That's beautiful. I love the way you explained that. Okay, I'm going to throw something at you that is just something that came to my mind while you were mentioning this. And I'm going to see if this resonates. Because I might have done this on my own without even realizing, like, if I'm laying in bed at night and there's like a pain in like my hip or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, it's like, I'm like avoiding and resisting the pain. And it
Mm-hmm.
might be like an emotional pain. It might be a real physical pain. It might be a combination of both. But what I'll do is I'll avoid it for a while and be like, why can't I fall asleep? Then I'm like, oh, wait, I need to pay attention to it. Right. Because when we're feeling a certain way emotionally or physically, like attention needs to be put on that place. And usually when we're feeling pain somewhere, we don't want to pay attention to it because it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
So if I pay attention to it and not like try to fix it, but I'll just like
Mm-hmm.
observe it and just like observe like, man, my hip really hurts. And I'll just kind of like look at it. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
physically looking at it, but in my mind, I'm just kind of like
Mind's eye.
my mind's eye, I'm putting it there in my hip. And I'll ask God, like, just, hey, I surrender this pain. I don't want this pain. It's not mine.
Perfect.
And if I hold that and I do that on, just like over the course of like, maybe a minute or 2 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
it dissipates and goes away. Now it's not always that simple, but I've had it that simple many, many times. Is that relating to holographic
Completely.
memory resolution?
Completely. Especially because when we're having emotions or we're having pain, and this technique is beautiful for physical and emotional pain. And that's really something to be understood is that, I use this technique with my clients who are post-stroke, who've experienced traumatic brain injuries, who experience stuttering. It doesn't necessarily have to be a physical pain, and it doesn't necessarily have to be an emotional pain. Either one is a pain. And in this case, what you did, you focused in on it, you leaned in on it, and you really just became aware of it and you let it go. As in your case, you surrendered it. And whatever surrender looks like to your nervous system was able to release it. Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah. Yes, it's amazing how it works that way. But we
It's
spend so much
powerful.
time resisting, right? And physical and emotional. We spend so much time resisting that we
Oh, yeah.
never give it the proper attention that it needs. So
Mhm.
We're going to jump in 60 seconds. We're going to chat with the Connected Leaders Academy, the sponsor of this podcast. When we come back in 60 seconds, I want to find out, I love people's quotes and sayings that they live by. One that you live by is change your voice, change your life, change your language, change your life. How have you changed your language in your life? We're going to talk about it in 60 seconds.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world, globally, all across the country, high performers, titans of industry. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, this is where you want to be. Join the Connected Leaders Academy today. We are scaling massively. We want to welcome you in. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JAESCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
So, Lenora, how did you change your language? What does that actually mean for you? You said change your voice, change your language, change your life. What does that look like for you?
Especially so as a speech pathologist, when we're talking about language, we often think, oh, the words that are coming out of my mouth. And that's true. But there's also the language of your nervous system that I mentioned, colors, shapes, textures. When we can start to change the language of how we talk to ourselves and how we feel, we can completely change our life. And, I really struggled for quite a while with critical voices, negative critical voices. And I even mentioned this in my TEDx. They were so harsh that I would literally experience shame, and I would literally experience a physical response to feeling so bad, which kept me in this loop. If I tried to change the voice and focus in for a bit on something more supportive, I could do it for a period of time. But my nervous system was wired differently and it would override it. It was something that I'd have to consciously do. And so I'm fighting a battle with 5% conscious mind and 95% subconscious. So I couldn't hold the ability to really have this shift in my body and shift in my life experience that I had truly needed. Once I was able to feel those emotions and I was able to really allow myself to shift the language of my nervous system, it was easier to shift the language than in my head, and everything changed. So really, when we're talking about language, yes, it's our words, but it's also our emotions, the language of how we feel this world. And we are feeling human beings. We can't not feel. To what degree are we feeling? And how good do you want to feel in this life? A couple of years ago, there was YOLO. How good, if you only have one life, how good do you want it to be? And we're often raised in our environment with certain standards, certain markers. This is what you'll achieve. This is what you can't do, what you can do. But when we really start to allow ourselves the thought flexibility that comes in that says, what else might I want? What else might I want to experience for myself? It becomes a completely different world. And it really allows you to have that growth. And you might be met with, no, you can't do that. Okay. So now noticing the language in my head, no, you can't do that. Okay. But if I could, what might that look like? Who else might I know that could really help me navigate this, that could help me shift into this? What else might be possible? So even in that, just in that little bit, allowing ourselves to have that conversation in our head, but also very specifically, if somebody's wanting to really notice the tone of their voice, how are these voices talking to us? What's the intensity? Is there a criticism coming at you? Is there harshness coming at you? Is there a supportive, kinder voice? And a lot of the time when we think, positive self-talk, it's like, oh, rainbows and sunshine. No, positive self-talk is supportive. It's kind. It's also encouraging, and it's not berating. It's not that everything's perfect. It's that everything's not perfect, and that's okay. And we get the privilege to really navigate this world. And what else do we want it to look like? And it makes a huge difference in not just our mental well-being, in our emotional well-being, in our physical well-being, and then in the relationships that we have with other people.
Yeah, it really is interesting that whenever I find myself like maybe like swearing in my head or out
Mhm.
loud, it came from an emotion that led to the words that I'm saying,
Oh, yeah.
right? And it could be the same situation as a day before, and the day before it didn't do anything to me. The day before I was fine with the thing that happened. But
Mhm.
the next day, like say my son getting ready for school, that can be, if I'm not in the right place, that can be the most
Mhm.
explosive place for me because it's just like, good Lord, we got to get out of the house.
Yeah.
And like, so some days I'm like super cool with it and I'm happy
Yeah.
go lucky with it. Other days, like one little trigger and
Mhm.
I I have to catch myself because I'm like, Rob, you can't act like this. You can't say the things you're saying in your head out loud right now. You have to stop. And it's like, wow, that emotional ear regulation, like
Mhm.
regulating that is very, very important and being aware of it before it happens. And having something in your life, which is what you do, having somebody in your life that helps you to build that practice in
Mhm.
is so powerful, is
Yeah.
so helpful because from one moment to the next, there's no guarantee on who we're going to be, how we're
Oh,
going to show
absolutely.
up.
Absolutely. And especially and I love that you shared that. Thank you so much for being so honest and open because self-regulating units, I call them SRUs, it's a real thing. When and especially even as people who are coaches, we help people with this. We are still human. It's not that I'm rainbows and sunshine all the time because I'm certainly not. But it's having the toolbox and it's having that ability that says, okay, so I have that awareness that says, okay, this is not how I want to react this morning, or this is not this best response. How might I choose differently? That is quite literally living what you do. You have that awareness that says, oh, that's right, I am human. Okay, I need to pull out this tool and I need to really focus in on that. And yes, it does absolutely burn through our self-regulating units because we might not have gotten the best sleep, or we might have still be carrying something else from the other day, or we might just not be in that moment of clear space. And heaven knows we all experienced God only knows what during the eclipse last month. Other things are going on. We're doing the best that we can at the time. And it's with the tools, knowledge, and energy that we have available to us. And because we can do better, we will do our best. And it might simply be, this is the best that I can do right now. And that's okay. And I'm going to continue to try better the next day. And just to acknowledge that we're not perfect and it's not 100% all the time, but we can at least acknowledge it and be kind to ourselves and say, I didn't mean to get really upset with you this morning. I truly am sorry. I hope you can understand I did not do it on purpose. I'm going to try my best. Let's also meet in the middle and really see what else we can do. And everybody's doing the best we can. And at least we're acknowledging it and we're not saying, oh, well, you deserve to be screamed at this morning. It's completely notice. Same situation, two totally different responses. And having that emotional intelligence and that integrity that says, I really was doing my best. I might not have communicated that, but I was. And I apologize if I had upset you. And let's work together and keep moving forward.
That's so true because that's the we're just gonna be a human and we're gonna do
Oh,
things
yeah.
that we don't want to do but apologizing. So that's so true for your kids. So this is part of great leadership. Great leadership is, yeah, I screwed up here and I apologize and I'm sorry. And that has to start with yourself, number one, like you said, your self-care, apologizing to yourself and letting yourself off the hook. Listen, I'm just me and
Yeah.
I'm not perfect. And then to your kids, to your spouse, to anybody who's close to you. But I think of like when you look at I'm just gonna say the government, right? They don't ever apologize for anything.
Yeah.
Like
Totally.
you hear, and I'm not saying that right or left. It's like you never hear people like leaders like come out and say, I'm really sorry, we really screwed this up.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like the BP oil spill. There was never like hey, I'm sorry, guys, that we remember that years ago. I don't know why that's on my
Mhm.
mind, but they didn't apologize and say, whoops, I'm sorry, we let that oil leak out
Yeah.
of that thing for a month straight. It's just it's such a simple thing to do to apologize and be human and meet
Mhm.
people and that helps people not hold resentment towards you. It's such a simple thing, but changing that language, that choice and that language is so powerful and so life changing. I wish more people would take the pause to be like, once I've calmed down, man, I didn't mean to say that. I'm sorry, and I shouldn't have said it because we all need to hear that.
Completely. And it's also what I love about it is it's also giving ourselves permission to not be perfect and to let other people see that we're not perfect and that it's okay and that we're going to learn and the world will continue to go around and we're going to do our best to be better. And that's a beautiful gift to share with people. We're so
It really
focused on
is.
like I have to be perfect and it's like no. We're not here to be perfect. We're here to be human.
Yeah. Good luck being perfect. See how that turns out.
Right
Good one. This has been wonderful as always. I could talk to you for hours, and I
back at you.
feel like it's cool. Like as we're both on our journeys to see you growing in your journey. So if people want to find out more about what you're doing right now and help them out with this emotional eating and their negative self-talk, check out eatlovehealjourney.com. Is there anything that you want to leave the audience with before we sign off?
Allow yourself permission to talk to yourself in a kinder way. It'll make all the difference in your life.
And the wording there, the language is very important. Allow yourself the
Mhm.
permission. That's really
Huge.
good. That's really important. You're allowed to have the permission to do that. Lenora Edwards, thank you so much as always. Thank you for being a part of the Unstuck movement.
Thank you, Rob. It's always a pleasure to be with you.